Alright, so this is a mod that I've been messing with for the last 9 days. It is the Lilith mod, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It puts Lilith with her skill tree into Borderlands 2. It's laid out the exact same as it was in 1. Everything about it is pretty similar. The only big difference being the fact that we do have level 80 instead of it stopping at level 69, so you can full spec 2 more skills than you could in Borderlands 1, and it just pretty much feels the same. Now, some skills to note here are things like Radiance and Phoenix. These do provide those AoE damages based off of your level. These skills feel really good in progression, but as you get later into OP levels and stuff like that, I do not particularly recommend them. But if you are playing through the mod for the first time, trying to stack a bunch of elemental effect chance and damage with your Radiance and your Phoenix can be really good for clearing out ads and stuff like that. Also, I would recommend trying out Phase Strike here, because you can get a class mod that buffs it to 11 out of 5, allowing you to deal 1,760% melee damage on leaving Phase Walk. That, paired with the fact that Venom can apply a corrosive dot to enemies based off your initial melee's impact damage, means that you can just poke an enemy. If they don't evaporate, they might get a dot, and then if they do get a dot, they will evaporate. And that is really strong all the way up through most of the OP levels. I will say after a while it starts to feel a little harder to use, but that's when some of her gun stuff starts to kick in. Now, for the gun builds on this character, I will say, of course, they're all going to feel very samey because we do have a lot of skill points. These skill trees are missing 2 tiers that you would have in the base game, and that's just not really a surprise because it is based off Lilith, but they feel okay. A lot of her damage does come from her class mods, because as you can see, we have fire rate here, we have crit here, bullet damage here, and another bullet damage here. Not really any other bullet damage skills in her skill trees. Of course, you can get mind games to cause enemies to get slowed and reduce their accuracy in this mod, which is really nice. But in terms of overall damage, you might get 80% gun damage, 50% crit, and then like 70% fire rate, which isn't bad, but if you compare it to vanilla Maya, for example, Maya even has more damage than that, especially if you use SMGs, so that could be a problem, but you can kind of make up for it with the class mods here. She does have a couple nice Gen 2 comms, so the Doll Professional is a Gen 2, the Mollywand Specialist, and the Hyperion Executive. They can all provide up to 80% gun damage with their correct gun. They can provide mag size and then a unique modifier dependent on which gun you choose from there. So Doll is burst count, Hyperion is more accuracy, Mollywand is status effect chance. And then there are other class mods, of course. Legendary Siren is Iridian Warrior. This is a more general comm I wouldn't recommend in late game, but it is nice early on because it does have Radiance and Phoenix for that like high AoE level damage, like I've said. And then the Slayer of Terra exists. Not necessarily great for anything, but it is there. And I did talk about the melee damage earlier, but I would like to note that there are no legendary comms for it, and you will be relying on a blue. But it's really nice blue. Gives you a lot of melee damage, gives you some movement speed and crit damage, and then of course it can buff Phase Strike over here, and it can buff Venom over here, and its final skill is Striking. So you can apply Slag to enemies, because that's what it is in this mod. You can apply Slag on these 2 skills right here, you can go ahead and apply damage ticks over here, and then you can do a really big poke over here. And if you've played BL1, you know Lilith is really easy to get her invis back on because it's on a really fast cooldown, especially if you get a couple kills. So you can just constantly chain poke a guy, turn invisible again, poke a guy, basically like mini must fall, but with a little bit more safety for the most part. So yeah, the character overall feels fine, feels normal. Good gun builds, decent melee builds, and then some nice utility with her leveling damage skills. I will say, there are a couple audio lines that are spammed a little bit too much. but you could comb through the mod and toggle on and off different stuff. Like, for example, Lilith's taking damage noise is very annoying. So I've gone ahead and I went through the BLCM file. I have disabled anything related to her damage noise. Now it defaults back to Maya's damage noises, which sound better. You can just do that. There is that interchangeability if you want it. Of course, you do have Lilith's model here, and it does go through animations and stuff. It has a couple problems with some textures clipping because I think it is bound to Maya's type of model. So, like, the neck is even more pronounced than it normally is in vanilla. The feet look like that. So, yeah, she's a little bit lankier, a little more cursed looking. But she plays just fine and you're never going to see it besides being in, like, this menu. Unless you were to, I don't know, do something else, like take screenshots of it or something. So, yeah, overall, mod feels fine. You're playing as Lilith in BL2, skills feel the exact same. The only thing she really suffers from is a lack of weapon swap speed, which I've grown to really appreciate, especially on melee characters in BL2. That's about it. Mod feels good, give it a try.